Welcome back, Trek fans. Today we're reviewing what might just be the best episode of Strange New World Season 3, The Sehlat Who Ate Its Tail. This episode takes us back to the roots of what makes Star Trek great. Character-driven storytelling, moral complexity, and that classic sense of wonder mixed with genuine consequences. So grab your favorite beverage and let's dive into why this episode is getting so much praise from fans and critics alike. All right, break down this week's title, The Sehlat Who Ate Its Tail.
All right, so what I got from this title is dear old Mr. Spock offers a saying to Kirk, and this means basically greed or thirst for power. You want to do so much that you'll even end up eating your own tail, so to speak. And so a figurative way of saying, just do what you need to do and don't be so thirsty and hungry for power because you never know. It always looks easy when someone else is doing it.
Yeah, it's easy to criticize. It's hard to actually do the work.
Preaching where we live. Preaching where we live.
All right, let's start with the basics. What immediately grabbed your attention about this episode's opening?
What immediately grabbed my attention about this episode was the fact that we were not aboard the Enterprise. And so that grabbed my attention initially. And the actual captain of the purest, yes, thank you. I was wondering, I was like, is she Vulcan?
She is. She was.
Okay, so that grabbed my attention as well. I know very surface level things, but it did grab me.
Well, for me, what grabbed me was just how bored I want to say Captain, how bored Commander Kirk was. It's hard to say. That's what grabbed my attention because when I think of him, I don't think of anyone who's bored. He's always ready to go. Like even when things are just kind of chill, he's ready to go. So yeah. So how effective was the contrast between Kirk's boredom on the Farragut and the sudden devastating attack that followed?
It was a stark difference because you see this very typically vigorous person and just, as you mentioned earlier, just ready to go, spring into action type person to a very uncertain and almost obnoxious person at the same time. So it was a very stark difference.
Okay. All right. So this episode centers on Kirk's first real command crisis. How convincing was Paul Wesley's portrayal of a captain facing impossible choices?
Depending on the leadership style, I'm going to say Paul Wesley delivered for me. I think he did a great job of portraying a brand new leader. Ready for action, so bored initially, and then something really happens. They put you in the field and you do not know what to do. You try to initially come off as being very sure and just, let's just do this, fire on it immediately. And then, just trigger happy initially to where it's like, no, that's not the best course of action. And so, like I said, some of it was kind of obnoxious in a way, but I think that was a smoke screen for I am terrified. And you do see people in leadership do those things. You aren't certain, but you're just going to do something and seem like you're sure of yourself when you have no idea what you're doing. And so instead of asking for help, you try to just come off.
Fake it till you make it.
Yes, very abrasive, until the good thing is he had a very strong group of individuals, shout out to the Enterprise coming through, that were like, no.
And was it not coincidental that it just so happened to be the Enterprise, some people that he had worked with, he had some relationships with, it was kind of coincidental, but at the same time, like it kind of made sense. So like I've watched the original show. And I do remember, I recall a particular episode where Kirk was like, nah, before I got command of the Enterprise, I knew Spock. And so I was just like, hold up, wait a minute, what is that all about? And we've seen the development of their two characters working together, knowing each other, developing some type of rhythm between the two of them. And I was here for that.
I was here for Scotty getting in his ass.
Oh, what do you mean?
I was here for Scotty getting in his ass and getting in his ass with an accent. Scotty was very annoyed with him. He did not hide it. And it was just like, his whole attitude was very like, yeah, I'll get right on that. But please get out of my face. Like, I don't know if you picked up Scotty's whole demeanor was just not fooling with Kirk, like at all.
I did, but that was not typical Star Trek. You follow the chain of command. And to see that, I was just like, how dare you? How dare you? Like, and I felt some kind of way because the Scotty that we had always known, Scott, he kind of had like his own personality, but at the same time, he always followed Kirk's orders, if you will. He didn't always tell Kirk how he was gonna do it, but he followed his orders. And to see that that reveal, I was just like, I don't know what to make of that. But at the same time, it was entertaining. It
was absolutely entertaining. But I do understand, like, okay, if this was a deviation, I was just like chuckling because I can't say I wouldn't have. Well, clearly, no one would ever put my behind. But okay, I know better, and you giving this kind of order.
Okay, so you alluded to it earlier. What do you think of the moment where Kirk admits to being frozen and compares himself to the dog who caught the claw?
I'm glad it was Spock, who he had that moment with. Although it was Uhura who initially gave the order, like, maybe somebody should try to just remind him of who he is. I appreciated that, but I appreciated the vulnerability because that is hard to do as a human being, let alone a leader who's in charge of basically keeping all of these people alive when literally no scientific way to put this. All hell is breaking loose. So yes, I appreciated the vulnerability, and I'm glad that Spock was able to level with him and get him together. So I like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What I thought was kind of nice was the fact that Spock was able to use George, Kirk's brother, to help him or to remind him of who he was. Considering the fact that he and his brother, are not on the best of terms, but it was Spock using his brother to help him see who he was. I like that. All right, so the crew actually discusses relieving Kirk of command. Was this a realistic response, or did it feel forced or for dramatic tension?
To me, it was very realistic. Like, if you're not going to act in the best interest of all of these people's lives who are at stake, and it's going to be a penis swinging contest just to prove I'm in charge now and I'm work, even if it doesn't. I don't think it was unrealistic. I think it was, with how he was behaving initially, I think it was a very real conversation that needed to be had. Now, ultimately, I'm glad that it stood to reason and they were able to get him to, react in such a way that was more like himself and very innovative in the way in which he thinks normally, as opposed to being under that level of pressure and being in the seat and making horrible decisions. So honestly, yes, I do. I think it was a very real conversation. Now, was it very real Star Trek? I can't say that it was because, again, the lack of background, but I think it was. I think the conversation needed to be had. There's several people I would love to unseat.
So what struck me in that particular moment was not the fact that the conversation occurred, but the fact that the conversation occurred on the bridge where other people were privy to that particular conversation. And at the same time, you're a crew of people from another ship thinking about taking command. I thought the optics of all of that was just like
Wrong.
outrageous, if you will. So, how did the Kirk Spock dynamic work for you in this episode, particularly that crucial scene together?
That worked for me quite well. Again, like although Spock is very dry, he's very direct, and so there's not a whole ton of time to do hand holding, but the mission was accomplished, as you know, that required him to get him to see who he was. So um as direct as he was, there's another part of Spock's humanity showing up. And so I'm glad that Kirk was receptive. So the exchange was kind of warm. I liked it.
So for me, so like I remember one of the movies, one of the Star Trek movies, where Spock, I don't know if it was Spock or Spock's dad, mentioned the fact that Kirk was engaged in cowboy diplomacy. He just kind of makes things up as he goes along. And what I saw in that moment was the germination of that idea where Spock understands Kirk on a level that a lot of people probably didn't really understand, because he was able to see him act at his best and act at his worst. But at the same time, that through line was, I know who you are as a human being. And because I know who you are as a human being, I need you to be who you are, and I need you to be who you are at all times, so that perhaps I, Spock, can be who I am. It's that perfect yin yang. And I just my gears were grinding at that particular moment. I was just like, yes, I'm here for it. All right, so I want to move. I want to talk about plot and some technical elements. Pelea's solution with the old rotary phones. Now, like I was like, what? You got? I thought at first I was like, oh, she means a walkie-talkie. But do you think it was brilliant improvisation, or was it too convenient?
Was it brilliant improv, or was it what?
Too convenient.
I want to straddle the fence so bad, but I think it was. I think it was brilliant. I do. But it's failure. It's so. I'm like, she's always prepared, even though she just seems so just wonky and flighty. She's always prepared for something that may never happen. And so I think it was brilliant. She has a whole
Actually,
bunch
I
of
think it was brilliant, and let me tell you why. When we saw her in the past, she ran an antique shop, so it makes sense that
that's why I say she
she
got all
would
that junk.
have. And in previous episodes, we saw that she likes the old, right? And she keeps the old, right? And so her having that, it made sense. It actually made sense. Like it wasn't too convenient, because it made sense for her particular character. So I actually loved it, and she brought levity with it. So I think she can do no wrong.
And everybody's like looking like, what are we supposed to do with these? Finally, you're a freaking hoarder for centuries. But you know what? Thank you.
So let's talk about the scavenger ship. Did the design and concept work as a credible threat?
Wait, say it one more time.
Did the design and concept of the scavenger ship work as a credible threat?
I think it did. I wasn't entirely certain what was going on at first. I was like, "Whoa, what is this?" And then right out of the gate, of course, before Kirk can even get the words "brace yourself" out, boom, they're getting hit. Um, and so I think it worked as a credible threat because you had so many people injured. They subdued the Enterprise, and so absolutely, I think it was a credible threat, at least from what I saw. I feel like somewhere along the way I got a bit fuzzy in this episode, But from what I remember, yes.
So for me, I really loved that particular ship because it looked like a giant insect that was just trying to
Like
eat whatever was in
the
its
mouth was
path.
coming open.
And because it looked so ugly and so alien, it 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 it, it scared everyone. Right? It was big, ugly. It looked alien. It scared everyone. And so, yeah, I think the design did its job. How do you feel about the pacing in this particular episode? Did the episode balance the action with character development?
So I feel like the way in which the show was paced, there was like honestly, it's quite a bit of action all the way through. And as far as like character development, um, 100% because you almost instantaneously see Kirk's development in this episode. But I think it worked really well. I enjoyed the pace, and it was a lot. Well, I mean, it's space, so there's always a lot going on. And then you know how this show does a good job of going in and out of focusing on certain characters, but everybody gets a um fair amount of screen time in this show. And so whereas I wanted Mbenga with his shirt off and all of that, I didn't get that in this episode. And that was okay. But yeah, I know we stick to the script. But yes, the pacing and character development, I think, were satisfactory.
Yeah, so do I. All right, now for
You are
the
not gonna breathe past that way. Yes, so do I. You giving me Brittany right now. Same.
no, I don't have anything to add to that. You covered it pretty comprehensively. For the major twist, the scavengers being human descendants from a lost 21st century mission. What was your reaction to this revelation?
I feel like I was lost. I feel like I was lost. Like, whoa, at what time in life? What in the world happened? Plot twist. And so
Uh-huh.
that's why I say that, like, in particular, is where I started getting a little fussy. Like, whoa, what is happening? And so for me, that kind of drove everything home. You may want to be trigger happy and all of these things, but there could be other people on the other side of this and just making those tough decisions. And like, what's his name? Pike reminded Kirk in the end. Either way, these are your decisions to make once you're in command, but you have to live with them either way. And so I was really surprised, like, whoa, wasn't expecting there to be human descendants on the other side of that.
Yeah. And do you think that this was just a shock for shock's sake, or did it did it did that revelation work in the design of this particular episode?
I think how everything flowed and developed, I think it was well placed. It was well placed because again it reminds those in leadership, and not just in leadership, everybody that's involved in this entire process, you have to make decisions based the best as you can, because you don't know, you could destroy a whole species that may even be non-threatening. And so I think it was very well placed because again, I'm going to keep saying trigger happy, because Kirk, whatever that is, fire it now. Spock was like, wait a minute, if we do that, we're gonna kill everybody on the Enterprise. What are you
Right,
talking
right,
about?
right.
So just take a beat, make decisions that are going to have as few casualties as possible.
Now, I do want to add here that on just about every show of Star Trek, we get to see people from the past, which is really our future. Um, and so seeing it in this particular episode, it was a shock. It was a shock, but it worked because it wasn't the first time that we had seen that in Star Trek's history. So we've seen people from the past show up in this particular way. It's just that in most, not all, in most cases, they were like cryogenic people, like they brought them back to life or whatever. In this particular case, no, they created their own civilization. And so that was a nice twist to the whole thing. All
So,
right. So,
quick
yeah.
question for you. Speaking of cryogenics, if we were living out our Star Trek fantasies in real life, would you want to be cryogenically frozen?
I would not mind. I wouldn't mind. To get to live longer, no, I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind at all.
Okay, ice cold. All right, I just had to throw that out.
All right. So this episode leaves the how of their transformation deliberately mysterious. And I'm talking about the humans who, were part of this ship. Does this work, or did you want more explanation?
I'm greedy. So quite naturally, I feel like with some of the fillers that have been in some of the other episodes and the dance sequences and all this other stuff, a little time to explain that. I'm not upset though, because sometimes we know a cliffhanger is good. It leaves you just okay. I'm gonna come back to this show because they just got me so hooked. But I would have liked an explanation.
Okay. So what I hear you saying is some episodes from this season could have been left on the drawing board, and they could have had a two-parter for this particular episode.
Quite possibly, I think that would have worked because, like you said, you have this scavenger ship that is all scary as hell. So there could have been a little bit more there. But either way, I'm not disappointed in the episode, not one bit.
Okay. Kirk's final conversation with Pike deals with the weight of command and empathy for enemies. How well did this land for you?
It resonated with me. It did because Kirk is, up at this point in the show. And so Pike has been doing this for a while, and he's made his fair share of mistakes, and some of them I still have not forgiven him for. Personally, I know every single chance I'm gonna Mayfair him down with what he did to me. But I thought it was a very beautiful display of how each one teach one, right? How that's necessary. Because if you don't have someone to mentor you, so to speak, to pour into you, hey, even though you did this wrong, from my vantage point, let me give you some gems, and I loved it. It was much needed, and like I said, it was kind of where we live. It made me think about what I do on a day-to-day, and I can think of a few people I would love to put in my position. Love for you to do what I do for 2 days, and then you come and talk to me about it and let me know how fabulous it was.
So there's an implication that Kirk feels worse because the casualties were human rather than alien. Is this problematic, or does it serve the character development?
I think it's problematic because in essence, there are several things that are foreign or alien to us. So just because they're of a different species, I mean, at the current point, you have different species working alongside you every day. And so I think it's problematic.
You know what? I think if I had to choose, I would say that it's problematic, but I am caught somewhere in between. I'm all over the place when it comes to that particular question. I will say this. I wondered why Pike was just like, he could have killed me, but he didn't. Why? I think they knew that they were human. But my question was, why not just admit to these people, hey, we hail from Earth. Our culture has changed. We're not the same that we used to be. We don't want to mess with y'all. But hey, can you help us out with this, or that? Right? And so I was kind of pissed that they didn't trust other humans. Like, why would they not trust other humans? You know what I'm saying? You're clearly stronger than them. You could have trusted them. And so like that was my issue with them. All right.
There are several humans that I do not trust. So I guess I can understand. Like, no, but I completely understand your point.
So that kind of leads to my next question. This particular episode asks whether we can become unrecognizable versions of ourselves over time. How effectively does this particular episode explore that theme?
One more time for me.
The idea that we can become unrecognizable versions of ourselves. How effectively does this episode explore that theme?
Oh, 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. They did an excellent job. And not that there weren't several people that could have delivered this, but I'm glad it was Kirk. I'm glad it was. And at least
Why?
from I'm glad it was Kirk because from the inferences I've been drawing from watching it, Kirk becomes a very, very prominent person within in Star Trek, within the Star Trek world. And so because of that leadership and all of those things, I was glad to see it from him. Because from what I gather, in the future, or if this, because this is the past, right? We're in the past, which is the current. I don't know. It just always confuses me with Strange New Worlds where it places. So forgive me for muddling that all the way up. Either way, I know he becomes extremely important, is what I'm trying to say. And so I'm glad that it was him, because he's expert level at what he does, for lack of better words. I'm sure there's a more $10 way I could say it, but I am glad that it was him.
Okay. So beyond Paul Wesley, you know, Vampire Diary, Lovers, you know, beyond him, how did the supporting cast perform in this particular episode? Any standout moments?
Quite honestly, other than Palia, um, I think, well, and Spock too. Other than the two of them, of course, the tee hee hee moments from Mr. Scott, with him making me laugh, which being insubordinate. Not a whole lot of standout moments for me with the rest of the cast.
Yeah. I agree with that. I don't know if this particular episode warranted that, and the reason I say that is because we know that Paul Wesley is going to become like Pike is going to be removed as captain of the Enterprise, and we know that Kirk is going to become captain of the Enterprise, and so this particular episode for me was kind of setting that up. It was setting the stage for that. It was setting the stage for that crew to get to know him and trust him because he went through that journey, and he went through that journey in front of their eyes. That's why I didn't really think that it was warranted per se. I do think that Spock doing what he did was pivotal, and it was pivotal to the future relationship that they are going to have. All right, so next question. The visual effects for the scavenger ship and the Enterprise being swallowed, did they serve the story well?
Anytime anything is swallowed, it serves something very well. But, but at one point, you saw me doing this, like, so visually, yeah, 100%. It was like that for scale reasons. It made the ship look so much bigger. It really did. And I know y'all are thinking, why are they cackling like that? But if you know, you know. So visually, 100%, I enjoyed it. I mean, and it's like I don't want to go anywhere near that thing. It's massive.
Sometimes some things are just too big.
That is a fact. There's no scientific way to put it. It's just too big.
All right. This question was really supposed to be for Corey, but he's not here. I'm going to ask it anyway. And if you have an answer, feel free to answer. If not, we'll move on to the next one. This episode brings together several TOS crew members working as a team. Did this feel organic or forced?
Okay,
Elliot?
so I kind of alley-ooped me in just a little bit, given some of the background knowledge of how well Spock and Kirk worked together. So I'm gonna go. Yes, it wasn't. It was not forced, because obviously Spock being an original member of the original series or what have you, and there was a relationship in place with him and Kirk, and so it was well placed simply because I kind of cheated and listened as you were talking about it. So definitely not forced from what I picked up from you.
Okay. All right. All right. Like I said before, like I thought it was nice the way in which they handled it. How does this episode compare to other season 3 episodes we've seen thus far?
Um, we kind of talked about it a little bit a few moments ago with how the other characters not really standing out as much. I mean, and it's okay, but it's just you only really had 3 to 4 people really making a notable impact in this episode, which in other episodes you've seen way more. To me, it didn't take away, but it was noticeable.
Okay. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this one, a ton of
Um,
action, kind of all the way through for me.
yeah. Yeah. It was notable for me that 3 people from the original show were present. Ahura, Scotty, and Nurse Chapel. Um, they were on the original show like the entire time, like in different capacities, but they were on the show. Um, so to have them present, that meant a lot. The oddball was Laan, but of course we know why Laan was added there. It was just so that Spock could get some stolen glances. But other than that, it was kind of like, why, why,
I forgot.
why?
I don't
I
even
mean,
remember
it,
seeing her in
it
the
makes sense.
episode.
It makes sense because she's a security officer, but at the same time, it was like they could have said that. All right. What's next? How does this episode compare? I'll just ask that. Do you think this represents the direction Strange New Worlds should be heading in? This particular episode, is this the direction Strange New Worlds should be heading in?
I'm biased, so sometimes I appreciate the so.
I don't know if it's my computer or her computer. Okay, so I'm just gonna talk. I think that this is so much better than what we've been getting this particular season. Like it worked. It was cool. It was cute. But this particular episode really brought the soul of Star Trek back, especially when you think about Deep Space Nine, where you got the character development, where you got the mystery of the week sort of deal. All of that was really really good. Oh yeah,
Uh,
I kind of filled in
yeah.
until you rejoin.
Thank you. I was trying to say I do appreciate some of the soapy things that they throw in that are kind of quirky, even though it doesn't have to be an overtone within the series. So I do appreciate that. But even with that being said, um, it's unnecessary. It doesn't have to be that. And so I like the direction um, that they're heading in if they continue to go this route, because here we are. This is what we do. this is Star Trek. You know, I'm okay with the scary ships and forcing people into making the tough decisions and keeping everyone safe and all of those things. And so if they continued this route, I would be completely fine with it. But you know, still not forget to weave in those other characters a little bit more because that's just what we're used to.
For viewers who might be on the fence about Strange New Worlds, would you recommend this as a good entry point?
Strange New Worlds this season or just the entire well an
Let's
entry
go.
point.
Let's go with this. Let's go with
The
this
entire
season.
season. Um I'm gonna say no. And because I feel like in the previous seasons, it was there still was a quirkiness in there, but a lot more serious. Don't get me wrong, I'm still enjoying this season quite a bit. But as an entry, I feel like I fell in love from watching it from the beginning. And so if I started at season 3, I don't know, and don't again, please don't misunderstand, loving the season. I don't know if I would have the same zeal for wanting to watch the show if I hadn't started at season 1 of Strange New Worlds.
Gotcha. Okay. So finally, does this episode give you hope? Well, no. I don't want to ask that. We've already covered it. Mayfair to 10. How would you rate this particular show? This episode, rather.
For Mayfair to 10, this one would probably land at an 8 for me. Would probably land at an 8. And not quite a 10, simply because, okay, I do appreciate, like I said, everybody gets their moment on the screen. But, just some of those other pieces, I wanted to see a little bit more. But still an amazing episode. So I would say an 8.
Hell yeah.
Uh-oh. Are you able to hear me?
I think both of us are having technical difficulties.
Some delays.
But for me, if you could hear me, I would also give this particular episode an 8 as well. Yes, probably for the reason. Oh yeah, because the character development was not as strong. For instance, I mentioned the fact that La'an was brought to the Farragut, and for all intents and purposes, she served no real purpose. We did get character development from Scotty, even though it wasn't in the direction that I wanted. But we got to see who he is as an engineer. He's someone who can make miracles happen. That's who Scotty is, right? Anytime Pelia is in an episode, to me, it's gonna be wonderful. I mean, last episode, like she coalesced everything. She was like, they're evil. Like, she can go from that to like making you just die from laughter. Like, yeah. She's great. Like, they need to figure out a way to make her part of Star Trek Infinity.
Yeah. Yes. I appreciate it. I'm there with you. I love seeing Pelia.
Any closing thoughts that you would like to make?
So the only thing I have to say is I'm really enjoying this season. I am. I just having this episode without all of the extra quirks and everything in it, even though I enjoy those things, I didn't hate this episode with the absence of it.
Mm-hmm. All right, everyone. So that wraps up our deep dive into the Sehlat who ate its tail. This episode really showcases what Strange New Worlds can accomplish when it focuses on character-driven storytelling and classic Trek values. Let us know in the comments what you thought of this episode. Did it work for you, or are there elements you change? And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share on all your social media for Star Trek reviews and discussions. Until next time, live long and prosper, my loves.